In this video, today we're going to be talking about 10 mistakes people make when starting an emergency fund. The first mistake people usually make when it comes to emergency fund is actually not starting at all. You have to start an emergency fund. But if you're not starting it, you are just waiting for the perfect time, or you are waiting for you to start earning more income for you to start putting up an emergency fund. This is something you are doing wrong. You have to start an emergency fund even if it's starting with $10 or $5. That is also going to add up, and it can help you fix some emergency issues in the future. So don't wait for the perfect time for you to start an emergency fund. Just start it right away, even if you're going to be putting it $5 or $10 a month. Another mistake people make when it comes to the emergency fund is actually not reviewing it regularly. You know, you have your emergency fund set. You had some goals that you set on that. You defined what your emergency fund is. After that, you are not reviewing it regularly. You have to review it. You have to go back and think of how you are going to save money, because things changes. You know, the emergency fund you had 5 years ago is not going to be the same emergency fund you'll have in a few years from now. So always go back to your emergency fund, review it, and check the amount of money that you usually deposit in that account. If there's some changes you need to make on that, go ahead and do them. If there are some things you need to fix, if you need to move your emergency fund to a higher yield saving account, you have to do that, because these things you are doing about reviewing, they're going to impact you positively when it comes to how much money you're going to put in your emergency fund. And to be honest, you need that. You need that money to be tangible, so that whenever you have an emergency that is really big one, it's going to be easier for you to fix that by just going back to emergency fund. So an emergency fund is like a safety net for you, so that you don't go back to begging people, taking loans and using credits, because so you're trying to avoid much as for this, because we're trying to avoid debts, and debts are not good. They're going to drag you behind, especially if you're someone who is chasing to build financial freedom early enough. We have those who already have an emergency fund, but another problem they do make is actually treating an emergency fund like a regular saving account. Emergency fund is only meant for emergencies, guys. You have to take note of that, and you have to be serious about that. Emergency funds are only for emergency, not for vacations, not for new phones, not for sales, not for taking yourself to those experiences simply because you want to go to a certain concert somewhere because Chris Brown is going, and you want to spend all your emergency fund into that. That is wrong. That is wrong. Don't treat your emergency fund like a regular saving account. Another mistake people usually make when it comes to an emergency fund is actually not defining what an emergency is. You have to define. You have to sit down and think for yourself. What will be an emergency fund look like to me? Guys, we all have emergency fund. We all have emergencies, and we all take them differently. So you have to sit down and clarify for yourself. Define what an emergency is. For example, if it's about your health, medical bills you have to do, or if it's a birthday present you want to buy, you have to look at these two: medical bills and birthday present. Which is an emergency here? So you have to think like that. The moment you actually put a clear definition of what an emergency is, it's going to control on how you spend that money. You won't take out that cash from your account simply because it's someone else's birthday and you want to surprise them. You only take that cash when only it's necessary, when you are cornered, when you don't know what to do and you don't have an idea on how you can get another cash to work on that emergencies. That is how it should be. When you are setting up your emergency fund, you have to be realistic about it. Just like savings, you have to have clear goals. You have to be realistic about what you are achieving to aim from that. So if it's an emergency fund, you are telling yourself that by the end of the year I want to save this certain amount of cash, maybe like 2,000 USD. And if it's for the same saving account, maybe you're telling yourself that I want to save about 5,000 a year. So don't put unrealistic goals of maybe saving so much money in your emergency fund to a point whereby you are saving so little in your saving account. Just be realistic. Just push money into your emergency fund, but don't be unrealistic about it. If you're always saving maybe $500 in a month, don't push it above that simply because it's an emergency fund and you feel that it should have more cash than your savings account. Always be realistic. Look at where you can be. Look at how your income is coming in. Look at how the things are flowing when it comes to your general financial goals, and budget and work out how you want to spend the money based on the income you have. The moment you are realistic about it, it's actually not going to give you pressure. It's going to give you peace of mind, because in a certain month I'll always be taking cash, a certain amount of cash into my emergency fund, and I'll also be taking certain amount of cash in my saving account. So when you are that realistic, without having too much expectation or being too tight with yourself when it comes to an emergency fund, you're actually going to do things right, and you won't feel overwhelmed when it comes to saving it. Another mistake people usually make when it comes to emergency fund is actually forget to automate savings. Saving an emergency fund manually, guys, it usually brings hell of a task. Sometimes it can be really, really hard, because most of the time when we are budgeting, we actually deal with the expenses, wants, needs, and savings, maybe debt repayment, and at some point we even forget to account for the emergency fund, because it's not something that we touch oftenly. It's not the stash of cash that we usually touch oftenly. So we end up feeling that, oh man, this is not something that I'm going to be using frequently, so there's no need to prioritize it, and you forget to automate the savings form for that account. When you make this kind of mistake, guys, it can be really, really hard for you to get out from. And when you start thinking of saving manually into that account, it's going to be a hassle for you. And you're going to find out that you're not saving at all in that account, or if you're saving, it's just irregular. It's not that consistently. And if you're doing this, you're destroying your emergency fund, because financial emergencies are always there. Something is just going to pop up, and it's going to require you to have a little bit of cash for you to solve that issue. So when you forget to automate, it becomes really hard for you to keep on saving manually on that account. So the best thing to do here is just automate. And as I said earlier, setting realistic goals about how you want your money to be saved and how much you want to save in that emergency fund. Be realistic about it. When you are realistic about how much money you want to put after automating, the moment your income comes in, certain amount will always be taken directly to your emergency fund, without an issue. So don't forget to automate saving in your emergency fund, because this is something that is going to help you level up your emergency fund, because it's going to keep on coming every month without you thinking about it. So the moment you sit down and start budgeting, you don't have to deal with your savings, you don't have to deal with the emergency fund. That cash is already in its account. That's the good thing about automating. Another mistake people make when it comes to an emergency fund is actually keeping it too accessible. It's an emergency fund, guys. It's an emergency fund. It only has to be accessible during the times whereby you actually have no other choice. You can't go to your savings, you can't go to your other sources of income. You only have to dip in that account. So when you keep it too accessible, the moment you just find an issue, and it's not issue, it might not even be an emergency. You just need quick cash to solve something, or to buy something, or maybe to invest on something, and you'll think, maybe this is too accessible, and I have more about $1,000 in this account, so let me just take it quick and easy like that. Guys, if you keep it too accessible, you won't have restrictions to go to that account. You'll always be taking money from an emergency fund, and that's the mistake you'll be making. So don't keep it too accessible. Keep it a little bit far. keep it in an account whereby when you want to withdraw those funds, it will take you about 2 to 3 days for you to get that fund. So the moment it's like that, it's going to be really hard for you to keep taking cash from that account, because it's a process. You'll only do that when there's an emergency. But if it's too accessible, guys, you are likely to dip into that account and take cash from that, and you'll be ruining yourself. You'll be actually hurting your emergency fund, and when you actually need it the most, it won't be there, trust me. Another mistake that people make when it comes to emergency fund is actually using credit as an emergency fund. Guys, if this is something you have been doing, using credit to cover up shortfalls or emergencies that pop up, this is really, really tricky, trust me. Credit is not meant for an emergency fund, because if you keep doing that, you're actually getting yourself into debts. Not good debts, bad debts, because the interests are going to keep on multiplying, and the amount of money that you have to pay at the end after that an emergency has been sorted, guys, it's going to be more than what you spent your money on, and this is going to ruin everything when it comes to your financial progresses. So avoid using credit as an emergency fund. You have to avoid that, and that's why it's important you have an account for emergency fund. Don't start taking loans, don't start using credit, because that is going to ruin everything you're working on, especially if you're someone who is chasing for the financial freedom. We don't need debts, so we have to avoid credits. Another mistake people make when it comes to an emergency fund is not replenishing it after use. Sometimes we forget about that. It's normal, it's our human nature to forget some things. You might have maybe really an emergency that you try to sort out. You worked on that, you took cash from that account, you ended up paying for it, but later on, after the emergency is sorted, you forgot to actually replenish it, and since that the emergency is over, you worked on that, you solved that problem, you're actually not even too focused on putting cash back in. Guys, this is a mistake you're making, because emergencies are always going to be there. Financial emergencies are always going to be there, and they'll always be there. So make a point of replenishing your account every time you use it. So if you know that you have taken about 50 or maybe 1,000 bucks from that account, you have to replenish it, because you need that account. It's a peace of mind, because when something happens that requires you to have cash in hand, you actually know where to get cash, other than going for credits, taking loans, which is going to be really bad, because debts are not your friend. Another mistake people make when it comes to emergency fund is actually saving too little. You save too little simply because you think, I'm not likely going to be using this for a really long time. I won't be using this often, so I don't need to save so much money into it. So you push lots of money into your savings account, into your debt repayment, but the amount of money that you put into your emergencies is so little. This is a mistake you're making, because financial emergencies usually come at its peak. When there's an financial emergency, it's usually lots of money that is going to be spent. So just imagine when your emergency fund account is actually having less money, what is going to be for you? How is it going to be? So you'll end up finding yourself borrowing money, loans, credits that will keep on increasing the debts, and when that happens, you just find yourself in the wrong spot, because after that you'll have lots of debts to pay, and this is going to hurt you financially. If you're someone who is trying to level up and become the financial beast you want to be, so always avoid that. Save enough money into emergency fund, but also be realistic about it. Don't make it in a way that is going to pressure you and put you in a spot whereby you feel it's a little bit really tightening, and it's cutting even you cash to spend on your other things, like your wants, your needs, your expenses, savings and the other things. Just be realistic about it, but don't save too little. You also have to have tangible amount of cash in that account. Anyway guys, those are the mistakes. Probably I've been making some of them. Hopefully you found some of them that are there to fix them. This is AJ. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you enjoy this kind of content. Like the video, share the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.